everybody, to Reclaiming America, our second of many shows that we've been taping, and we're glad to have you here. Again, this is Bill Moore and my co host,
Dan Roman.
and we're here to talk to you about common sense solutions to everyday problems, which are usually caused by liberals.
I thought we weren't going to be biased. I guess that went right out the window.
I'm not being
Show 'em your
biased.
shirt.
Anybody can
It's
see
too
the shirt.
good not to.
It basically says that if it wasn't for second opinions, liberals wouldn't have any. And actually,
Yeah.
this is something I stole from Chris Plant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is one of his. I actually bought this from him. He has. He has he sells shirts and whatever else. And
So merch.
I like this. I like
I was
this
going
one.
to say,
So I
we should
purchased
make
it.
that our merch. We need to have some merch, too, so
Well,
we can
we
make
do.
some
We
money.
do. We can have pictures of you and I.
Oh, yeah, that'll sell well.
$10 to see us in a Speedo. $20 not to. We can make a fortune.
We could. A mankini.
A mankini. There. Now that I haven't heard.
Oh, a mankini is unitard with very little down below. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave it at that because this is a family show and I don't want to spoon it
Just
off of
remember
social media.
what they say. There's only two things in the world that don't lie. First thing is children. They're always honest with their opinion. And secondly, is yoga pants. They do not lie.
I'm not him, just so the record. No, I'll go.
Okay.
Because your wife's probably going to watch this and go, oh, really, Bill?
Yeah, but she's. Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so
Dan made
anyway.
me say that.
Anyway, so
Yes, sir.
interesting week this week. Quite a
has
few
been.
things to talk about, but we don't have 10 hours. So why don't we get started?
Yes, sir.
Topic that I wanted to throw out for discussion was our dear leader, Mr. Biden, trying to be polite here, taking a trip over to Ukraine, see his buddy.
It's amazing he found it,
Well, he didn't find it.
but he got off the plane without hurting himself.
Yeah, but going
He'd
back.
go back.
in
And
the
I saw the
fall.
fall. I saw the fall.
But so I'll start with my opinion on it, which is, you get on social media, the news and all that, you see both sides, right? The left thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and the right's condemning it. I'm honestly kind of in the middle. I don't have a problem with him going over there. What he said while he was there, that's a different story.
Yeah,
But-
the 500 million, by the way, just bumped to 2 billion today.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that a little bit, but just at the initial first level, because a lot of people are saying, why is he going? I don't have a problem with him going there. I think, wherever you stand on all of that, do I support Ukraine? Yes, I do. Do I support them to the tune of however many $1 billion it is now we've sent over there? No. I'm sorry.
And what scares me more than that is we are depleting our own resources so badly. And I'm not talking about coal and whatever else. I'm talking about the fact that the ammunition that we have built and stored, it's now reaching the point where it's critical because it's all being put on ships
Yep.
and being sent over there. And we don't have enough to fight our own war.
And we may be fighting a war very soon. We don't know.
Yeah, and the way they're talking.
The way things are going. But
The other thing I had to laugh about, they're all bent out of shape because China looks like it may support Russia with arms and ammunition.
like they haven't been already.
That's number one, and number two, but it's okay for us to do it. And it's okay
Well,
for
that's-
Germany
yeah.
to do it and England, but it's not okay for the Chinese. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
There's your shirt again. If it wasn't for double standards, it's. Yeah, again, I don't have a problem necessarily with us supporting Ukraine to a certain extent. I think humanitarian aid absolutely is warranted. When it comes to military aid, I mean, we're skating a thin line to begin with. Essentially, we're involved in the war, whether we want to admit it or not. If we're sending ammunition, tanks, I have no doubt our Air Force is over there somewhere.
We're flying the drones because I don't
Come
think they'll
on.
let
I mean,
And we just sent him a bunch of laser drones too now.
exactly.
So we're controlling those.
My fear is that at some point it is going to escalate because Putin doesn't have an out. He really doesn't. His only out is victory or ultimate defeat. And by ultimate defeat, I mean destruction of the entire world.
But the other side to that coin is we get so involved, it becomes a red flag or a signal to everybody else, do what you want to do.
Yes.
I mean, look at the reality, China and Taiwan, China and Japan.
Mhm.
You know, the more we get bogged into this place, the less likely we'll be able to defend them and help them. And don't you think the Chinese see that? I mean, he announced today that he's sending 200 or 300 troops to go sit in Taiwan to make sure they know that we're there. They should last about an hour and a half, assuming they took 40 minutes to cross the water. No offense to our troops, it's just the reality.
Yeah,
Of it.
what is it, 2 million man army they have or something like that
Oh, yeah.
against 300?
No, he said 1 or 2. It's not even
Oh,
300.
okay, well, I was thinking, you know what I was thinking is a 300 to Spartacus.
And keep in mind, we generally run a 10-to-1 ratio of supply to fighter.
Yes, so that would mean like
We have a
10 fighters.
platoon or maybe a company fighting, and the rest of it's being flown
You have
in.
a squad fighting, and then
Unless they're all special operators.
you know, it's his commentary while he was there. The thing that I just was appalled at is basically he's saying, you know, we're here to support you. We're going to do everything we can. And essentially, he told the Americans, I don't care about you. I care about the Ukrainians. You know, with all the stuff that's happening with our economy, you might have heard about this little train wreck that happened a few weeks
In
back.
Palestine? Nah, I heard a rumor.
You know, none of that seems to matter. What matters is we're going to go over and tell the Ukrainians, hey, we're here to help you as long as it takes.
But maybe we should float a different balloon for this.
Pun intended.
Are you saying I'm full of hot air? Is that what that
Well,
was
no, I
going
was
at?
thinking we talked about balloons
Okay.
last week.
Uh,
But that's even better. I'll take yours, yeah.
Okay, my thought there is maybe the trip was to divert us from the fact he hasn't been over to
Oh,
see
absolutely
this
it
thing.
is.
So this
I
is he's
totally-
handling international affairs,
Yeah.
and he didn't need to be there this week, but he had to be because then it gives him an excuse for not being where he should be.
Right. The right hand is doing all this stuff to distract from what the left hand's really doing. And avoiding responsibility. And, well, we should probably talk about that a little bit because, not to kind of go off track, but why don't we? You know,
You
it's
take one of those straight lines.
yeah, why not? So we'll go off the rails. Bum, bum.
Oh,
I really shouldn't joke about it because it's a pretty serious matter. But what I find interesting in the last couple of days is you hear them blaming Trump for the train derailment. And, you know, well, he
Deregulated.
deregulated. There was only supposed to be one person on the train, which, to my knowledge, there were two, plus a third one, which was a trainee. That's typical, by the way. My son-in-law was a train conductor. He now works in the yard, but there was only two of them on the trains always, going back to Obama,
it's like pilot and co-pilot.
basically. So, again, it talks about distraction. By blaming Trump, they're avoiding taking responsibility. Now, who's been in charge the last was it
2+?
25 months, give or
2
take?
plus, yeah.
So whatever Trump did, why didn't they reverse it?
And they reverse so much else.
I mean, day one, he's changing everything else. Why didn't you fix that? If you knew it was a problem, then fix it. Or are you admitting you didn't know it was a problem and that's just as bad? You know, it's,
But don't you worry, our transportation secretary showed up to solve the problem.
oh, well, he showed up because he got shamed into it because basically Trump was there the day or two
Yeah, and
before.
would you ever want to follow Trump anywhere?
No, God, no.
God,
You
no,
know,
it would never work.
whatever you think about him, he draws a crowd and he gets attention.
And the crowd loves him.
And that crowd loves him. It was interesting, and we were talking about this before we went on air. You know, on The View, which is such a wonderful program, to hear Joy, is it Behar? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Basically, tell the people they deserved the train wreck because they voted for Trump. I mean, even the audience was gasping about that. And that just speaks to the whole mindset of it. There's no accepting of responsibility by the current administration. Our transportation secretary is, I'll be kind, woefully inadequate.
Useless comes to mind.
Well, okay. You know, he can take 6 weeks off to take care of a baby, which is fine, but, you know, what has he done since then? Nothing.
Well, he might have changed a diaper or two.
Maybe. There's a full of,
And that
you know
could be
what?
for
There's-
Joe Biden joke,
I was
too.
a full of something in there, but I'm going to let it go. But you look at that whole scenario, and what I'm taking away from it more than anything else at this point is the lack of communication to the people that are there. You've seen a lot of dog and pony stuff. There was a group of people, bigwigs, I'll call them. They had a glass of water. Oh boy, all right. One glass of water probably is not going to harm you. Are you going to drink it for the rest of your life, like the people that live there will have to? That's a whole other ballgame.
And the people that live there have now taken the stance that we are white trash, and that's why no one's coming to us.
Oh,
We're
well.
Trump supporters, which makes us white trash, and we're not getting any support from the government because of it.
Absolutely,
And then you roll Donald in, 24 hours ago, with his usual showmanship, took the world to lunch at McDonald's. Did you hear what he told the woman taking the orders?
No, I didn't hear that one.
He says, I know the menu better than you do. Just relax.
Well, he does.
And he bought every EMT, every firefighter, everybody who worked there got lunch on him.
Well, that was
In
nice of him. I
addition to
didn't-
him,
yeah.
he brought something like 14,000 bottles of water
That I did hear. Yeah.
and on massive trucks.
Yep.
And the worst part, again, the left on the news, he did it because he wanted to get exposure for the Trump water. He happens to have water that says Trump on it. So he brought that water. So therefore, that's why he did it, so he could get free advertising.
I don't have a problem with that, even if that is the truth.
And it's not, but I agree with you.
Who cares?
The people got water which they weren't getting before.
Exactly. I don't care if it had Biden on it. They need the water.
I want it tested.
We could ship them some of our water from where we are. That's wonderful. We talk about the military. This is where the military could be used effectively, right? You are in, the tankers they have.
Not only the tankers, I was working with units that had the ability to purify 20,000 gallons of water daily and make that put on. We did it in Turkey and many, many times. And I'm sure my producer over there has done it around the world in many other places too. So the military has the capability to deliver that, and quickly and efficiently.
And not that it would be easy, but it's not that hard.
You set them up, you put it through the water pure processes, and you have something there to ship it out in a
So
tanker.
why isn't our transportation secretary picking up the phone, calling SecDev,
You mean
whoever,
General Milley?
anybody?
General Milley around?
Yeah. Tell us how you really feel. That's a quick phone call, and it could go a long way towards helping these people.
And the units that generally do that are in field service support, or they're in the guard. Most of them are in the reserves. There's some inactive, and there's a few in the guard. They're in the local area. They can be
As I said, they
activated
take- yeah.
on a phone call.
I mean, you got the National Guard, you got Ohio, Illinois is near there.
The Army Reserve
The
is there
reserves,
too.
they could mobilize very quickly and at least alleviate some of the suffering for these people. And it's not even on the radar that I've heard of.
No, and we did it in Turkey. We rolled in Turkey. We set up 3 of these big vats, if you will, filled them. We took the water out of the ground. We purified them, put them in potable tankers, and shipped them wherever they had to go. Wasn't an issue.
And yet, these people are begging for water.
Yep.
And it speaks to what you were saying earlier, which is where's the administration's priority? It's on the people of Ukraine. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm not sure it's on the people of Ukraine. I hate to say it this way, but these are white Trump supporters.
Well, yeah.
They're not going to
It's-
get priority from this government.
From anybody.
Not
in
from this government.
Not from this administration. And then the other side of it is this is where the Republicans need to step up in Congress and say we're gonna do what we can. And I think they are.
I think they've been pleasantly very good for us so
Yes.
far. Did you hear Jim Jordan today? Speaking
No,
of that, he, without Democrats who refused to go with him, he went to Arizona to hold his meetings to talk about immigration and illegal. He's down in Arizona with every Republican on the committee. Not a Democrat would go with him.
And that tells you again where's their priority. It's the people that we want to talk to, the common man, are being ignored by this administration.
But again, they need to realize they're not alone. We are the majority.
By a wide margin.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we got, 2 more years, give or take, of this. And it's not going to change much in the next 2 years. At least I don't think so. If anything, it'll get worse.
Well, the one thing that, you could get worse in one way because in September, when they start working on next year's budget, the Republicans now have some say.
There's going to be a cat fight going on
Yeah,
there.
there's gonna be a real issue there.
Yeah.
So,
And that's where, the power of the purse is the ultimate power. And that's where the House has a lot of pressure they can bring at that point. And I think they will. I'm
oh, if they
confident
continue
will.
doing what they're doing,
Yeah.
they're gonna be very, very good for all of us who are fighting to put a stop on some of what's going on in this country.
But in the meantime, why aren't we activating the National Guard military and getting these people the help they need? I think back to where I'm from originally in upstate New York. PCBs was a problem in the Hudson River. And, General Electric, it took a while, but they eventually got held accountable. And then the river was dredged, which, by the way, I was there when it was dredged. You have never smelled a more god-awful smell in your life. But it got addressed. Where we are in southeastern North Carolina, there's an issue with water.
And it is being addressed.
It's
and
being addressed a little too slow for my thing, but at least it's being addressed.
But even there's an environmental group, and you talk about South Carolina and
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina with us, they've gone to court because they want 57 other items tested for, and the judge has ruled that 7 need to be tested.
Yeah, that's
So, but that's a start.
But at least there's movement.
Yes.
We need to see action and movement where the train's derailed. And, I forget who the congressman that's been doing the videos, and I've watched maybe not all of them, but the majority of them. You literally see stuff floating on the water.
You have a former president that's been there. Tulsi Gabbard showed up. down there.
Tulsi, my girl, Tulsi.
I knew you would want to. I give you that
Right.
softball.
10 years ago, far, far left radical, and now she makes,
She's an independent, but
she's claiming to be an independent,
But
but
I would not be surprised if we didn't see her name popping up for VP someplace
somewhere.
down the road. I would not be surprised at all.
And, I was watching just before I left to come so we could do the show, I was watching her speak about it, and she was just ripping the administration. Now, she's military. She's a lieutenant colonel now. So I don't know what kind of power she might have as an ex-congresswoman.
Did she make the light colonel?
Yes,
Captain
I
is
believe
what I
she
thought.
is. I think she just got promoted.
You're a major. I didn't think she
She was
made
a
it.
major. I do believe she'd get promoted.
Well,
Whatever.
Maybe.
Whatever. But she has that ability. Now, I know she's not a general, but she's also a former congresswoman, former presidential candidate. You combine all of that, hopefully she'll be able
And
to
she's
bring
got a
some.
major podcast.
Yes, she has. She
And
launched
she-
that about 6 months ago, and she's like top 3 already.
She was like, I think it launched in the top 10
Yeah.
nationwide. It came out that same day.
Yeah.
And she made it to the top 10. So she's doing well.
Well, we're going to knock her down a peg with ours because we'll
Yeah,
pass by her.
Tulsi, nothing personal,
Nothing
but
but-
you're in trouble.
And if you want to come on, we would love to have you join us.
Yeah, if we can boost your ratings anyway, please call. We'd be glad to work with you.
More than happy to. But I have a lot of respect for her because, her viewpoints and mine were 180 10 years ago. She has seen the light, I guess. And the one thing I will say about her is that she genuinely cares, and you can see it. And that's rare in politicians because she walked away from Congress. She could have been a lifer. She could have been the next, how long has Pelosi been in? 50 years? Schumer, 50 years?
49 years
Yeah.
too long.
That could have been her. She chose to walk away from that.
Which we give her credit for.
And I do give her credit for it. And again, not to constantly tout her, but hopefully with her being on site for the last couple of days and seeing what's going on, she can bring whatever pressure she can bring to help these people out. My ultimate goal with all of this is to help the people.
Well, that should be the goal of all of us. They're fellow
It
Americans.
should be.
They are fellow Americans. They need our support.
Unfortunately, half the country is not giving them their support. They're saying you deserve it because you voted for Trump.
Well, we also need to separate something right now. You go to the Democratic Party, there are now first of all, they've driven the moderates out. They're gone. They're pretty
They're
much,
now considered
they're
far
now
right.
unaffiliated and or maybe even some have gone to Republican. But the far left is in control of it, but there are still liberals, and liberals are not the far left.
No, they're not.
You know, there's a difference, and people need to understand that. Just don't label them liberals. You know,
Well,
like
why
my
don't you
shirt does.
explain the difference? Yeah, I was
My
just going
shirt,
to
my
say.
shirt does that.
But why don't you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because I think
You know,
that's
a
a good
liberal
point.
may not agree with everything a conservative does, but they still believe in basic freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera. A far leftist is looking to overthrow it and take power, and that's all you're dealing with. They are
Correct.
far left. They're fascist left, if you will.
So a classic liberal that people might know is Bill Maher. Is that
Bill Maher is a classic liberal.
He's a classic
and you've
liberal.
seen him starting to show that more and more.
What he is now?
Banned on Broadway.
It's hilarious to see because he's pretty far left as far as what his beliefs are. He doesn't believe in the extremes that they're going to, and you see him pointing things out, and they just
Go
attack
nuts.
him. They go crazy.
Tulsi could fall into that category too.
Yeah, I think she's a little farther right than he is, but
She might be libertarian, right?
that's a fair point there. And I would say Mahar's probably headed that way. You know, it's funny to see how he's changing over the last couple of years. I don't watch his show, but I do see him on like various YouTube clips talking, and you know, he points out the illogic of many of the liberal arguments. And to see his audience respond to it, that gives me encouragement because let's face it, his audience is not that far from the views,
Maybe they are.
but I think they're starting to be. That would be what I would say.
Well, as you said before, when Joe Behar made her comment, even her audience gasped.
I mean, how do you know, that would be like telling someone who's Jewish they deserved it because
Or someone
they
dying of
allowed
cancer
Hitler
or whatever
to
else.
come to
You
power.
deserved it.
Yeah, you deserve.
God gave it to you to punish you for
I
some
mean,
reason.
you just that was like you said a little while ago. You know, we need to come together as a country and do all that. How do you reason with someone who thinks that way?
You can't.
You can't. There's no way. And to your point, they are the ones that are in power right
But
now.
what you need to do is get those people who are liberal, center and right center, left center, center and right center, and get them together and isolate.
The extremes.
You know, put the extremes out and isolate them. Just cut them out and let them go back to what they did 20 years ago, which they just yelled and screamed and danced out there, and no one paid a lot of attention to them. It was just them.
Well,
You know?
you bring up an interesting point with that because let's look on the other side. There are extremists on the right.
Absolutely.
And they pretty much have been ostracized.
Yep.
The left doesn't like to point that out. They like to lump everybody together. But if you look at the Republican Party, conservatives,
Proud Boys, for example.
well, you know, it's funny about the Proud Boys is I did some research on them a few months back, and they're labeled as an extreme far right. And I'm not trying to say they're not far right, but I don't agree with their tactics in a lot of cases. But if you look at their philosophies, they're not that far right. It's the problem that they're having is they're reactionary to the far left.
Right. They need to deal with the left needs to deal with the Antifa types,
Right.
you know, and that group of people,
Right.
and the BLMs, and they're there too. The extreme in the BLM. Not all BLM is extreme, but some are. Okay. And we have the same problem.
Well, the
with
leadership
far,
was,
the
but now,
alt-right.
yeah, the alt right. But you know, again, I'm not supporting the Proud Boys in any way. But like recently, locally where we are, they showed up at a school board meeting, and all they did was stand there with holding signs. They never said a word.
And there was almost a riot.
And there was almost a riot, but the riot was the other side.
Right. Not them.
And looking at the local newscasters, they portrayed it as the Proud Boys stirred up a fight. So while I don't support a lot of what they do, I think calling them extreme, I'm not sure I agree with that.
All right. I will back off and.
But that's my
acquiesce to your
opinion, and
knowledge.
your opinion could be different, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But
I will defend to the death your right to be wrong.
but I find that the reason I'm bringing that all up is that I find that is what happens. I mean, you got to consider that you and I are considered extreme far right
Oh,
by
sure.
people on the left.
Yeah, and on the extreme right, I've become a rhino. It's amazing. Depending who you're talking to, I'm extreme right.
And
or I'm a rhino.
I'm a conservative libertarian more than anything at this point. Although I'm starting to sway back, I got really turned off by the Republican Party in 2018, that whole area. because I saw what Trump was trying to do policy-wise. Forget all the bluster and all that stuff, just his policies. And the few things he did get through had a tremendous impact on our economy, improving the lives of the everyday Americans, and he did not have the support of the party.
And I will give you correct for that, but again, he didn't win with the Republican Party. He won with a coalition of forces from the
Exactly.
center, from the unaffiliated, from the
Our people, our
our own
peeps.
people, and from the Democratic side, the, if you will, the blue dogs.
The
They
disenfranchised.
came
yeah.
over and joined. So he was not just a Republican base. It was a
It
was a
was-
populist base coming from all directions.
Yes, and it's interesting to see now as you look back on that. We know how the left feels about all that, but it's interesting to see how the Republican Party is looking back on it. How you and I are looking back on it.
But we can say things, and we can, and I will agree with you that the Senate did very little to
They did
support the man,
nothing.
except, and I give McConnell very little credit for anything,
The
but
turtle.
he did do well with judges. He got the Supreme Court done, and he got some 400 judges through the federal system, which is making a difference nationwide. The rest of the time, he was almost an enemy.
So we'll give him that one.
Give him
I'll
that one.
concede that point. I will absolutely concede that point. Name one other thing.
He's not a twin.
Because there is nothing else. And we're seeing a continuation of that in the Senate, I think, a little bit. New blood needs to come into the leadership in the Republican side of the Senate.
I agree.
Having said that, I was not a fan of what was going on in the House. And
But McCarthy has proved his worth
McCarthy,
so far.
but seeing the change in the last 2
Now,
months.
was he pressured by some of the
Right.
Yes, but he's still keeping his word, which is all that's important.
And that's where we need to see the Senate sides do the same type of thing.
Yeah,
Put a little
I agree.
pressure on and change. Actually, I think, frankly, they need to change leadership. But it's, the common man is the one that needs to be.
2024, there are more Democrats up than Republicans in the Senate.
Well, that's going to be a very interesting.
And if they do not pull that off, McConnell should be dog meat.
Well, my argument would be it should have happened this go round.
Yeah, but you can't go back with shoulda.
I know,
You gotta deal
I
with
know.
Going forward.
But the fact that they did not take it, it just, to this day, I just sit there and shake my head. How it's what, 51-49, I believe, after the Georgia race.
Not counting 52 if you want to count the idiot. I mean, excuse me, the vice president. I apologize to the position, not to the individual. In the military, we learned a long time ago, when you had someone who was not necessarily your equal or your superior, but except for rank, you would start the sentence with all respect to your rank, sir or ma'am. And then beyond that, it used to be a no respect to you, but at least you covered the bases to make that happen.
So with all due respect to you, no.
And, and I will tell everybody, those charges against him have been dropped. Don't worry
You
about
tried
it.
that the other day. So we do another show. He tried to get me arrested on that because we were interviewing some police officers. Oh, excuse me, sheriffs.
It's just guys, call him police officers. Go,
No.
Sheriff Ingram is right here. You come in to get him money. He gets out of Compass. Boy, come find him.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Anything else on this topic?
I think we should probably wrap this one up and
Yep.
take a break and see where we're going from there.
Sounds like a plan.
So again, Reclaiming America. Stay tuned for even more good stuff.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Reclaiming America. So we had a really good first part of the show, and now we're going to get him fired up.
Here we are.
So you want to talk about Medicaid.
And I want to talk about a General Assembly in North Carolina who has generally done a magnificent job for the last few years, keeping
Generally.
taxes low, addressing issues in the school districts and whatever else. They've done a magnificent job. As a matter of fact, since Governor Cooper came, they've only had one budget signed because the rest of them he wouldn't sign because they wouldn't put in an expansion of Medicaid. So now that we're in his 7th year,
Of 8,
yes,
and then he's done.
and God help us we get to 2024. We can't wait. they are suddenly now, and they've passed the House and they're in the Senate, passing a Medicaid expansion bill to bring up towards to 1 million people into the program. Now, I'm not saying people don't deserve it. Please understand where I'm coming from.
Okay.
But what I have problems with is when you start thinking that we're stupid. For example,
The politicians thinking we're stupid.
and I'm very upset because these are
Hell.
some people that I've known for years, and I'm just surprised they either bought this or they believe that I'm going to believe it. First thing, their answer is they have put triggers in the program so that supposedly 90% of it's being paid by the feds.
Right.
And but as minute that money dries up, that program disappears. Now, what is the chance of a federal program, especially dealing with Medicaid? They're going to turn around to up to 1 million people and say, by the way, you're no longer covered.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Right. They're gonna end up eating it and pushing their budget out. Yes, they have a $3.6 billion surplus because of great management. They're there.
Right.
But how much of that's going to be eaten up by this program, especially when the feds dry the money up? Because they're heading there with their $33 trillion deficit now. They're going to have to start cutting somewhere. You know,
They haven't yet, though.
and then the second part of this is, which is equally driving me crazy. They also said they're going after certificates of need. Now, if
Now
you're not
explain
aware,
what that is.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you don't know what that is, anybody that wants to set up a hospital, expand a hospital, set up, for example, an MRI or any kind of a machine like that, has to go and prove a need for it
Right.
to the state. And the state has the ability to bless you and say no, but the hospitals nearby usually have the ability to kill it. So, and let's think about it. I'm a hospital and I'm making great money off with this
Oh,
machine.
they're making a lot of money.
And now I'm going to let competition walk in who's going to do it at half the price or a third of the price
Not gonna
or
happen.
3/4 of the price. I'm going to approve that? Ain't happening. So they're trying to lower that. The best part of it is they're trying to get the hospitals to agree. And that's just
now you're
not
getting
gonna
me
fly.
fired up.
Good. We should be fired up about this because we need to not throw away where we are. And when you start talking Medicaid, and you got to understand, you're basically talking for single men, and that's who you are, because you still have women's, infants, and children money programs out there that kids can get, that women can get those policy from the feds. It's the insurance is there. Plus, you have what you get if you're already on Social Medicare or whatever else, and if you're working for one of these businesses, you get covered also. So
Well, that's part of the problem is businesses are doing away with coverage.
not if you're working for the state or
Well,
whatever else.
the government still has it, but most small businesses, and even the larger ones, they're doing away with medical coverage or they're cutting back on how much they're offering. So back when we were younger, we were wee lads, generally businesses paid 80, 90 to 100% of the premium.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, depending on the company. You're lucky now if you see 50% in a lot of them, and small businesses are getting just destroyed by it. As an owner of a small business, and having one that I previously sold, I had 12 employees. I did not offer health care. I couldn't afford it. There was no way. We looked into it. We wanted to do it, but it would have bankrupted us in literally a month. And that's where Obamacare came in, right? Or as I call it, the abomination care, because
Now who's all fired up?
oh yeah, well they kind of go together though, right? They're all kind of tied together. I remember I was very much against Obamacare, still am, and I'm on it. Um, what was the famous saying? They said, "We'll read the bill after we pass it," and I think to this day they still have not read it.
It's too big.
It's what people don't understand is the actual cost to the consumer. And I will use myself as an example. I pay for just me almost $1,000 a month for coverage that doesn't even kick in until I pay out $8,000.
And too many people are in that boat.
So I can get a free health exam. Woo woo. I'd rather pay $300 for a free health exam and get
You
help.
free contraceptives if you're a woman.
So, well, yeah. But, I ended up having to go to the hospital last fall, and the ambulance ride cost me $1,600 for a 3-mile ride under Obamacare. This is supposed to help me out. what was that Reagan saying? I'm here from the government and I'm here to help you is the worst thing that can be ever said.
Yep.
And this, I think, talking now, tying this back to what you're talking about, it's the same scenario, right? Yes, improvements need to be made, but when you're looking at the fox garden, the hen house, as far as you're going to go to the hospitals are in business to make money. Even if they're nonprofit, they're trying to make money because nonprofit doesn't mean the executives aren't getting paid.
That's true. And they
Okay,
prove that on a regular
it
basis.
just means stockholders aren't getting paid. There are many nonprofits out there paying tens of millions of dollars to their CEOs. And what's your viewpoint? Do you think that I can tell you're against it, but do you see any positives to this?
The biggest issue is not even a positive to me, it's still a negative.
Okay.
Because no one is dealing with the fact you put 500,000, 750,000, 1,000,000 people into the healthcare system. The doctors aren't there to see
Well, that
them.
was going to be the next
You know,
thing I was going to bring up.
You're right now, you're running sometimes months to see a
Even
doctor.
Henry's upset
It could
about
be
it.
6 months from seeing a doctor. Yeah, his vet might back up on him. There's a problem there. But you could back up 6 months. Your testing could back up 6 months. And in too many cases, it could be fatal, especially if you're looking for some sort of disease issue and you got to wait 6 months for some sort of a screening test. It's often too late. It could end up killing you. But and then the next answer that they're giving in this package, well, there'll be telemedicine. We've already proven that the rural areas who are in dire need of doctors and or hospitals don't have adequate internet to do telemedicine, or who would they talk to? So, I don't understand where they think we're coming from because it's a problem and they're not addressing it.
Well, I mean, telemedicine is an interesting thing that you bring up. I have used it. I don't know if you have yet.
My wife has, I have not.
I actually liked it. I got to be honest. I liked it much better than going to see the doctor.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying, but the
But-
purpose of it is,
Yeah.
if it's going to be used to help cover the additional 1,000,000 people that need coverage, the very people that need it won't have access
They
to
won't
it.
get to it. Well, the other side of it is, I will not reveal who the company is, but I also had a eye exam done telemedically. So they have you go in, they put that gizmo and they circle the things. Well, this was all remote controlled done. Oh, it was hilarious. Any guesses on where the doctor was?
I don't even want to begin.
Either New Delhi, Bangalore, or some other place in India. No joke.
And they were able to diagnose your eye issues over telemedicine.
Exactly. And that's, I see both sides with telemedicine. I've had really good experience. That experience was so bad, I had to go somewhere else to get my eyes redone because it was horrendous.
Well, I wonder how you do the stress test for your eyes.
It was,
The
yeah.
glaucoma.
Literally, I walked in, they sat me in the chair, they did their thing, and that was it. And the prescription was completely wrong. So again, pros, cons on telemedicine. But your point that the people who need it in the rural areas, if they don't have internet or quality internet,
Or if they're not very well off, they may not have the computer to handle it.
true, although most people have the phone. Most people use their phone for telemed. They don't use a computer.
I don't know about that.
My experience, well, we may have to agree to disagree on that one. Yeah, most people, that's what they do. No, most people don't use computers anymore, Bill. I know, I hate to break it to you.
Oh,
They use their phones.
yeah, but you'd like to be able to see something.
He's got a flip phone, just so you know.
You mean the rotary doesn't work anymore? That's one of the way to punish kids.
It is one of the best ways.
Take away give them a flip phone, give them a stick car, and give all your directions in cursive. They'll never do. They're dead. They're finished.
What are some of the other things that they were talking about? Because you clearly know more than I do about this. Yeah, I said it. That make them feel good. Like coverage-wise, what are they looking at? What were they trying to cover? Is it just basics? Is it more than that?
There are 35 components to Medicare, and they can do any combination of them. In North Carolina, unfortunately, some of the components are almost the Cadillac plans.
Okay.
So it depends. You know, and since it hasn't gone through the Senate yet, and they're gonna have their cut at it, you know.
And they may come up with something completely
And
different.
very often they're gonna have to go to some sort of a conference to come up with a solution.
Right.
Uh, and I don't think you're gonna have a problem getting the governor to sign it, so it's not an override
Now,
situation.
he wants it
Oh, yeah, and
in
he-
some
he'll
form
take
or another.
whatever he'll get.
Exactly.
So he's gonna be happy with it. The question's gonna be what they finally come down to. And again, it's still 90% of it's coming from the feds for now. But when that money dries up,
If it dries up.
it will dry up. You got a $33 trillion debt there. You got to cut it someplace. I mean, the first thing they always do, let's go after Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and,
Well, that's what they
and the
say, yeah.
military. Those are the 3 points that you have to cut.
Right.
Yeah, right. We don't want to cut a social welfare program.
That's not gonna
because,
happen.
As Ronald Reagan once said, the closest thing to immortality is a government program. And he's absolutely
He
correct.
was 50 odd years later. There's name one program that's gone from his era, including some of the ones he put in. You know, I see both sides of it. I'm trying to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here. I agree with you, but
Please write that down somewhere. I'd like that sent to somebody.
it's on,
He
it's
agreed
on
with me.
video here. But I'm trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate. So, cost is an argument you're making. What would be another argument that
Access.
Access, okay.
Is an argument. And the fact, why have you suddenly reversed course after 6 years?
That's a good question.
You know, I mean, for 6 years you fought
So-
it tooth and nail.
Why do you think that is the case?
I don't know, and I can't get a good answer.
Any speculation?
I'm afraid to speculate because
be
I just
afraid.
don't.
You're a big
I think
boy.
what they're trying to do now is, to the credit of the legislature,
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to address all the difficult issues they can. You know, from meetings I've been at,
Mm-hmm.
I know, for example, they honestly feel they have a better than good chance of overriding anything they want to get through. You know,
They only need one crossover.
they only need one crossover in the House. The Senate's already a done deal.
Right.
What they've done, and not most people don't realize it, is they've actually taken certain Democratic people in the House,
Mm-hmm.
and they've gotten certain positions on committees.
Little wheeling and dealing
A
going
little
on.
wheeling and dealing,
Trying to be
so
polite
that they're
here.
kind of looking at, you know, maybe you'll come on my side. They got to turn. All they got to do to break this dam is turn one guy.
Right.
So
So
once
we're
that's done, the dam is
throwing
over.
out some speculation. Is there a deal somewhere in the works here? We'll give
If
you
there is,
this.
they're not talking about it
They're
yet.
never going to admit it. But here's a little bone we're going to give you. We'll give you the Medicaid down the road. We're expecting a little payback type thing. I don't know. I'm trying to be. I'm pretty neutral on all this. I see both sides of it. I don't have a firm stance either way. But I do have questions like you brought up. Why all of a sudden, right? Now I believe North Carolina is one of 10 to 12
one of
states.
11 that have not
11,
adopted
okay,
it.
that haven't adopted it. The question I would have, and I honestly don't know the answer, is how is it working in the other states? Do you have any knowledge on that?
I do not.
Yeah.
But I would dare say that nobody who's running it is running an excessive budget. It's not having an excessive surplus
You
anywhere.
mean like New York?
Like New York,
California?
like California, like Illinois. Pick one.
And again, I'm not taking a position either way. That would be to me something that I need to look into. Like, all right, and not those states, but I don't know if Nebraska is one of them. I'm just picking a state.
Yeah, and the
random.
other part of this is going to be, we talk about how many of the 35 parts of Medicare they're going to put in the final package.
Well, that's the other thing. Is this thing written so that it's so vague, like Obamacare was, for the literally tens of thousands of pages in that thing? It was so vague, you didn't know specifics on it. You still don't.
No, that they have to identify what of the 35 pieces of Medicare.
Yeah,
they're
we're
gonna
going to
offer.
cover X, Y,
and
Z.
and we're not
That's
going to
what
do
I want.
ABD.
Right. That's what I want to know.
And I don't know if they're going to publish that yet until they find out what the Senate passes. And then once it
And
goes
then
to
they
the
got to do the
conference,
committee
and
on
then
it.
they'll come
Yeah.
out with a final answer for that. But my two concern is the access issue for
Mm-hmm.
the people that supposedly need it the most, and secondly, this ability, they're negotiating with hospitals to work with certificates of need.
Now you're going to get me fired up because the cost of health care is out of reach for most people at this point. the
Yep.
average person, the people that we want to talk to. And I'm including myself, by the way. All right. I talked about I went to the hospital. That visit is going to cost me a rough, well, it did end up costing me roughly a third of my income last year. That's not including what I paid in insurance premiums. So that was a hell of a blow to take on this thing that was going to give me free health care. You know, my fear is that this will end up being another case of that, where they try and do good and they end up making things worse. I am all in favor of trying to give people that need help help. Absolutely.
And I'm all in favor that competition will solve many of the issues.
Right.
And if hospitals have competition, because right now, if you talk to Dale Falwell, who's our treasurer, he cannot get enough support from people to pass a transparency law. Know what's on your
Yeah,
bill.
we
You
actually-
can't even find out what the bill is.
We actually interviewed him back in September about that. You were away at the time, and it was interesting to hear his take on all of that. And something as simple as what is transparent was about the bill. What are you being charged for? How much? Why is it an aspirin $20? Why is an ambulance ride for 3 miles $1,600 when I could have taken an Uber for 20? I've never done an Uber in my life. I'm guessing 20. I don't know. Or oh, by the way, my wife was with me. She could have driven me there. It's the whole thing. Frankly, in my opinion, the whole thing needs to be blown up and redone. And competition is absolutely key to all of that. The problem is, big pharma, the hospitals, they got a lot of money and they like to spend it in Washington, Raleigh, and all the other state capitals.
Yes, they do.
And they wield that like the sword of Damocles. It's
Which is another way we lead to the fact that we need to start finding ways to cut down the cost of campaigning.
that's a whole other topic.
I know.
Wow.
You want to just,
We may want to table that one because that's a whole show
that could
right
be a
there.
whole Saturday, Sunday.
That could be a 5-part series of 4 hours each
But-
on that one.
I am concerned because I don't understand why the Republicans are doing this, but I think what they're doing is that long-term, they're going to eventually take on as many difficult issues in this long session that they have going on, which will last till June or July,
Right.
because they got to do the budget too for 2 years.
Right.
And I think you're going to see abortion come up. So I think they're trying to paving everything so they can get some cooperation and go there. Because,
It's all wheeling and dealing. We
you
all
know,
know that.
do I believe we're going to ban abortion in this state? Right to life, I don't think it's going to happen. However, I do think they will find, if you want my swag based on things I'm hearing, I think they might find a way to say nothing after 15 weeks unless it's the health and welfare of the mother.
Currently, right now, it's 20.
Twen-
Again, we could at
could
some
kick
point
that
we
around.
should do a show on that because I think that would be an interesting discussion. I got to be honest with you. I think there's bigger fish to fry right now than that.
Yeah, but they're taking on every difficult
They are.
issue they can find.
To their credit, by the way.
I agree.
I gotta
And
give them
they've
credit
done
on
a
that.
great job since 2010.
Yeah.
Straightening our finances out, creating, they paid over $3 billion debt to the feds because that's how much they were in debt over Obamacare and all the insurance money and the unemployment that we borrowed to survive. They
Yeah.
paid it off. They've lowered taxes and they've got us in a $3.6 billion surplus. And now we're going to start looking to,
And see, the libertarian in me is screaming right now because I see where having this come into play, Medicaid, all of that, is a benefit. But I hate that the government's doing it. I'd rather see more competition in the marketplace, let that drive down costs, and then address it from there. Because as you see with Obamacare, you think about what you paid for your co-pays, your prescriptions, the premiums on your policies 15 years ago versus now. Forget inflation. It's so far over inflation, it's ridiculous. And there's going to come a time in the very near future, I'm going to have to make a choice. And it probably will be I have no medical coverage because I cannot afford it. And, for someone who's making $20,000 a year, they get it for free. That's very few people. They make it seem like it's a lot of people. It's actually very few.
And I want to say, and I'm not 100% about this, so I'm going to
Mm.
clarify that by saying I'm not sure. But I want to say the number, they're saying 150% above poverty level.
It's roughly, so if you
And
make more
I'm
than
not sure
roughly
about that.
55, 60,000, depends on your state and all that other stuff. In New York, it was roughly $60,000. If you made more than that, you got no help in the household, not one person, the household. So someone who's making $12 an hour, times 2,000, 24,000 a year, both of them are doing that. They're going to get a phased in help, right? They're not going to get it for free, but they're not going to pay the full. You go to 15 an hour, now you're bumping up against that threshold, and now you got to pay.
You're going to lose money.
And you're going to really lose money.
Mhm.
And, it speaks to, it's one of the prime drivers why businesses can't get people right now. Because why would you take that cost on? They don't talk to the common man about this stuff. I've brought this stuff up for years, and people look at me like, no, you get it for free. You want to see my checking account? Because let me tell you, I write that check every month. And they're flabbergasted when I tell them the actual truth about it.
And they're flabbergasted when they find out how much is out of your pocket before you get kicked in.
$8,000.
Right.
I mean, I'm in the mid pack. There are ones that are 12 to 15 grand.
Yes, I know that. I know.
There are some that are like $2,000, but you're going to pay $2,000 to $3,000 a month in premiums. They're going to get you one way or the other. So my fear with something like this is, okay, they start rolling this out. Like you said, the funding dries up from the feds. The state's got to take this on.
Because there's no way it's going away.
It's not. And then the state can't handle that. So who ends up ultimately paying? The person you're
and
trying to
again,
help.
This is an example of why things don't go away. Because I don't know if you know it, but as of Tuesday next week, the extra money that was put into the SNAP programs
That's
to cover
gone.
inflation,
Yeah, I did know that.
is disappearing. And there's already groups screaming and teaching people how to go back and get their money back and get it raised to where it was. There's programs out there online and whatever else to do that. And you're talking about anywhere between $100 more a month that we're given, $1,000 to a family of four just on SNAP, and they're looking to cut it back 100 or more. And already groups are screaming, all the left is screaming, we got to put the money back. We're hurting these people. It was temporary, but temporary on the left
Comes
is
permanent.
forever.
Yeah, and that's why I think, you look at what was it, $600 a week they were giving away a couple of years ago. It's gone, but it's not forgotten.
Nope.
And you're seeing a big push to bring it back.
And you know what I also laugh about, and it's again off the topic a little
Yeah.
bit, the people who are now finding mortgages at 4, 5, and 6%, who are screaming at those rates. And most of us, that was what we paid. If we got a 6%, that was a good deal.
Back in the day,
Yeah, that was a good
my
run.
my first mortgage I think was around 7 or 8. That now
If you got a
long
6,
time
you,
ago.
you did real well, or you refinanced to get down to a 6.
Right.
But nowadays, 0.1 is a good mortgage, and and these people do not understand the reality of where things are going.
There's another. we are
There's
finding
another
lots
day.
of topics today that we're our producer's making notes. I hope for topics to go.
Okay.
All right. Anything more on this one?
I think we have just
I didn't get you
about
fired up enough. I don't think.
I've covered my points very, very well, and I'm satisfied with all my answers.
Okay.
We will keep you abreast of this as it develops, and keep you, as the Senate does their thing and what finally gets to the governor's office and what finally comes out as a
Well,
product.
he's going to sign whatever he gets.
Oh, yeah. And he'll take credit for it,
Oh, absolutely.
that he negotiated with all these people and had it done.
Yeah.
Till
Governor
they try to
Milquetoast, by the way.
Till they turn around and say, well, we agreed to this, you got to do this. They never agreed to that.
Yeah. So I have no love for that governor.
Nope.
That's why I call him Governor Milquetoast.
That's why we need to break the veto. We need to make that veto happen
Yeah.
once we can break it. Because once that dam is broken, he can go lock himself in his basement for the next year and a half and come out when it's done.
No, he'll tell you to go lock in the basement while he's out watching hockey games without his mask on. But anyway, I digress.
We don't want to go there right
Yeah,
now.
we don't want to rehash
Because
that
we don't
one.
want to. We're getting ready to run a number of things that are going out there with people. By the way, election is already coming up. We have munis in a couple of weeks, and I will
I
tell
cannot
you,
believe it already.
munis sign up in July. November is the election. what is interesting, and I will not speak to the woman's name or her business, had a conversation with a lady yesterday who owns a business in one of our beaches in Brunswick
Okay.
and was really, really upset because she put a couple of figures outside her build business. I don't want to go into what they were because it would tell you what the business was, and I don't want to get her in more trouble.
Okay.
And the building inspector showed up
Uh-oh.
and told her it was violating town ordinances in Brunswick and in this town, and they had to come down. So she made the mistake of saying, he said, and one person complained about it to her, so that's why he showed up. So he said, this person said, well, the person next to me's got him out there too. But there were no, and so the building inspector went over next door and said, there's a complaint about you having the signs. And now her friend next to her is no longer her friend.
I was gonna say, oh
And
boy.
she's calling me in my role in the county to see what I can do to help her. And there's very little I can
I
do
was
to
gonna
help
say,
her.
there's
It's
probably
ordinances
nothing
or
you can do,
ordinances.
right?
You can just tell her to go talk to people and see if you can get something changed.
She could run.
She might, but she was really, really upset for two reasons. One, it affects her business, and secondly,
Right.
they used her to knock down a neighbor, a business neighbor, who is now not happy with her. So
And the person who filed the complaint against her is probably ecstatic because they got her.
I'm not going to say it was a leftist,
But
but boom, boom.
on that note, why don't you throw us to break?
All right, everybody, this is
Forgot his
Reclaiming
name already.
America, and we're having a great time. So stay with us. Talk to you soon.
He's old. All right, welcome back to Reclaiming America. Why are you looking at me like I'm an idiot? Because
The
it's
shoe
too easy.
fits.
I know. I was going to say, there it
Don't
is.
leave an opening like
Well,
that.
I just kind of threw that one down the middle of the plate for you.
I was
So,
blind and knocked that out of the park.
even Mark McGuire would have struck out on that one. Anyway, another topic that we wanted to bring up. So, past few days, our illustrious president, said with all due sarcasm in case you didn't figure that out, did another executive order about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
You want to quote what he said?
Well, I'm going to quote part of what was part in there. So basically what they're talking about is hiring, primarily in the government, but they really want to push this for everything. And it specifically states in there, and I'm quoting a news source, it goes on to list all of the groups who deserve to be treated equitably, in quotes, beginning with Black, Latino, Indigenous and Native Americans, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander persons, and other persons of color. So that means if we don't have color, which would be like you and I,
White is a color.
well, I was trying to, you keep stealing my thunder. You're not worthy.
I've been told that before.
So I just found that interesting that
And it will never pass muster in the courts.
legally it'll never stand.
No, it will
It
go
is.
to Supreme Court. Thank God we have that majority there. And thank God in North Carolina we now have the majority there.
The problem is going to be, though, somebody's got to bring it to court, and it's not going to happen overnight.
That's not a problem.
The issue I have with it all, look, I am a huge believer in best person, man, woman. I don't care what color their skin is. They could be blue from, was it Avatar? Is that whatever that was? I don't care. I want the best qualified person to get the job. So instead of hiring someone to be transportation secretary because he happens to be gay, or hiring
Transgender.
the guy who stole the clothes,
Oh, yeah, who's stealing clothes in
who's
suitcases.
the nuclear thing, because
Nuclear waste.
I don't know if he's trans. I honestly don't know if he's transgender or
I'm not
whatever.
Sure. He's one of the categories, but I don't know what he is.
They were hired because of who they are,
And what they represent,
not what they
rather
were
than
able
what they
to
can
do. Right. Right on up to our wonderful vice president. All right. So,
I'm keeping my mouth shut on that one.
yeah, well, yeah, we're trying to be nice here. As someone who has hired and interviewed hundreds, probably thousands of people. When I was hiring, I did not see skin color. I really didn't. I saw what they could do and what they could do to help the team. Because I was hiring for primarily IT. I didn't care. If that was a quality candidate, they got hired. And the funny thing is, this was 10, 20 years ago. I had more women in IT than most people did. And it
If they were
wasn't because
qualified.
I was trying to hire because they were a woman. They just one, they fit with the team because that was the most important thing to me, and they have the knowledge to do the job. That's all I asked for, and it just happened to be that way because I remember an HR person coming to me going, you hire a lot of women in IT, and that's not the norm. And I went, no, I hire the best people, and they happen to be the ones that were the best people. It's just interesting to see. Now, as a white person, I'm vilified for being that, excluded from this. So I hire based on merit, but you're not going to hire me based on my merit.
No, you're being discriminated against.
That's where I was going with the whole point. I went the long way around. You just kind of cut to the chase. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's flat out
Again,
discrimination.
one of the problems with this is they're looking at the wrong end of this. You should not be looking at equal outcomes. You should be looking at equal access,
Equal opportunity. Is the
opportunity,
way I put it.
access, where you
Yep.
want to put it.
Yep.
Everybody should be able to start from the same square. If it's kindergarten, whatever you're going to start, you're going to college, whatever it's going to be, go in with the same skills, but we're all not going to graduate with the same skills. As we develop, some people are going to do better at some things and others.
Right.
I was not made to be a long distance runner. Does that mean the
No.
long distance runner should be punished because I can't race like him? It doesn't work that way. Some people have skills in science and math. Others are great at English. Some people are skilled with their hands. Some people work better just with the concepts of operation, or both. But the problem is we look to find reasons why this person isn't as good as this person, and the rationale with that, his skills may not be there, and it may not have anything to do with the start. It just means that he's better at something that the other guy is or the other
Right.
gal is, and that's fine. And you hired the best of people.
I did.
I hired teachers up galore for the time I was principal and assistant principals. And we hired the best person through the door.
And that's the way it should be. But you brought up an interesting point because there are exceptions that are the reverse of what they talk about. And I'll give you a perfect example of it. The NBA is 90% black. Major League Baseball, I forget the exact numbers, but the number of black players is like 30%. So there's a DEI, diversity, equity, and exclusion branch in the Major League Baseball because they want to recruit more blacks in it. You ever heard about the NBA doing something like that to recruit more Asians or whites?
Well, they actually have two Chinese guys playing, so
Two.
they have gone out and found
Yeah,
two.
but you get my point with it, right?
I understand.
Is you're seeing, and same thing with football, right? Football, overwhelming majority of number of players are black. I don't have a problem with it. Why? Because they're the best players. That's fine. If you're the best cornerback, I don't care what color your skin is. If I'm the coach, that's who I want in the field.
It gets interesting because you start looking at certain sports. For example, right now, if you're looking at a sport that is not territorial, non-equity, look at soccer. I mean, soccer
Well,
has
that's not a sport, Bill.
It's not a sport. I have two grandsons who would like to meet you at your car.
That's where football players go when they can't make it on the team.
That's where football players go when they want to kick a field goal because they come to the soccer team. To get
Actually,
the kid to do.
on my high school team,
That's what we
he
did.
was from
we
the soccer
always
team.
agreed with
Yep.
the soccer player,
Yep, he
and he
was.
was going to miss Friday night's practice because he was at the
He
game.
was at the game.
He
You
was
know what?
kicking the field
You
goals.
got me on that point because it's absolutely true.
But you look at the fact, and a certain percentage of soccer players are Hispanic. I mean, because they've been playing soccer.
Well, that's how they grew up with
their
it, yeah.
culture. That's what
Right,
they grew up
right.
with it. So they're very good at that game. Look at swimming. I mean, if you look at minorities in swimming, it just isn't there.
No, there's not. And hockey's another one.
Hockey's another
I know,
example.
but it's the nature of where the most hockey players come from.
But if we're going
North
to do
cities.
diversity inclusion, then you need to add the white person, and I have to tell you, they need
Exactly.
to then start saying, NBA, you need 30% white,
Well,
40%.
there are teams in the NBA that are entirely black, which I actually don't have a problem with. But if you're going to have a DEI, then yeah, your point is valid, right? And what do you base it on? Is it the breakdown of the population?
That'd be interesting.
So the NBA now has to get rid of, let's just say we apply the DEI principles to the NBA and a team has 12 black players, the entire team's black. Well, whites make up, what is it, about 45, 50%?
We're close.
Let's just use 50 to make the numbers even. You got to get rid of 6 quality black players for the only reason their skin color is black. How asinine is that? That would be beyond stupid to me. But yet, the reverse, they're all for.
Absolutely.
And that's my problem with the whole thing, is you're not hiring someone based on their ability. You're hiring them based on the color of their skin. And that is the very definition of discrimination.
And hopefully the courts will see through that. And hopefully it won't take too long to get there before too much damage is done.
It depends what district they start going through.
Well,
You know, it's you go into one of the California districts, they'll stonewall this
Yeah, but-
forever.
but you have to understand, just like the left picks the district they're going to, so does the right now. They will find,
They are, yeah, they're
they will
starting.
find a friendly district and start the case.
And it
up.
shouldn't be that way, by the way, either way.
But it's reality.
But it is the reality, correct?
So they will find it and work its way through the courts. And, hopefully it will move quickly and we'll get a solution to these issues, the stupid issues that we have to deal with.
I just find it fascinating that people don't look at the opposite of it all. They are so gung ho. We need DEI. We're, and then I bring up these points, and they dismiss me as a racist immediately. Here I am fighting to support black players, but I'm a racist for wanting to do that. I it's asinine. When you're in a locker room, I played football. You apparently played soccer. I don't know. When you're a coach, when you're in a team, it's who can help you win. That's all that matters. Color is not seen
No,
in a locker room. It is not. And it's amazing actually to see that and having been a part of that.
talking with that, and I know our executive producer will understand what I'm saying. You get into the military, for a while we had color issues in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
But, there's a reality, as they said, there's no atheist in a foxhole during firing. The guy next to you, it doesn't matter what he or she is, as far as race, whatever else is concerned. If someone's shooting at you, that's your partner that you have to
That's
survive
right.
with.
Right.
And we need to understand that.
And that's the way it should be. And it would be, it's the whole, this whole DEI thing scares me because it's being applied everywhere. You're seeing it local municipalities, or even where we are, they've got them. And they're pushing it. And the bottom line is people who are qualified for jobs are not even getting interviewed because they happen to be white. And the funny thing is, you don't see that when you're reading a resume, right? If it's Bill Moore, you're just assuming he's white. Well,
But their forms nowadays indicate it.
yeah. But, I mean, Bill Moore could be black. So because you're targeting certain one, well, Bill Moore's probably white, into the trash the resume goes, that's wrong too.
Mhm.
I just, for whatever reason, I just feel whoever is the most qualified, man, woman, chihuahua, I don't care. If you're the most qualified, you're the best person to do that job, you should get the job. And I am a firm believer in that.
Well, again, it's a question is, do you want the person that's doing surgery on you to be the most
Or flying
qualified
the
surgeon, or flying the plane, or someone who got a 65 on plane flying, or there's someone who got the 99 and knows how to fly a plane, or the
Yeah,
surgeon?
if you need open heart surgery, do you want the person that happened to just barely pass, or do you want the one that graduated summa cum
Yeah,
laude?
and the other thing is, one would think, after all the years we had with these special programs that were put out there, the one-up programs, if you will, we would have learned by now that good, bad, or indifferent, there was a certain stigma attached to it. If you got the job because you were black or Hispanic over a white person, because, well, you got the job, not necessarily because of what your skills were, but because the programs are there to get you there.
Oh, Harris. Oh, sorry. I had a little cough there.
And unfortunately, there were some damn good people that were given
Passed
jobs,
over.
but they were not, passed over. And the people in the minority group that received their jobs, but they were never given the credit because of these
Because of
affirmative
that,
action
right.
programs.
I mean, there are some, well, we could go for hours on that. We probably need to wrap the show up on that.
Yeah, this is the long 10-minute one, so.
Yeah, we're going to leave it at
think-
that one.
I think we'll just wrap that up with, listen to us the next time, because we're probably not gonna let this one go away for a while.
No, we'll be revisiting this one. So, hope you enjoyed the show. Hey, if you did, give us a like because we're trying to grow the channel. Subscribe and hit the notification button because Bill subscribed, but he forgot to hit the notification button, so he didn't know when I posted it. We're going to be doing shows weekly. We might even throw some bonus ones in here and there.
And sooner or later, we'll get to the point where you can live chat with us.
And
or
we're going to
maybe
have
on
live
call.
chat. We're going to have
As we get
hopefully some
bigger
guests.
and we get
Yeah.
stronger and brighter.
We're just getting started, folks.
Right.
So come on back next week.
If
We'll
you
talk some
like
more
what you
topics.
hear, we're coming around and we got a lot more of common sense issues and common sense solutions. So talk to you soon.
All right. Have a great week.